I'm Hallie Jackson in for Gadi Schwartz tonight, and we begin tonight on the Israel-Gaza border with 24 hours now of relentless airstrikes on targets in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Prime Minister telling troops today they are facing the next stage of this military operation. You heard him say this, look at this, at an Israeli army base just a few miles from Gaza. Here's the deal. It is still very much a question mark as to whether or if a ground invasion will happen. But according to one of the Israeli hostages released by Hamas, we are getting a glimpse of what the IDF could face if they do. Listen to this 85-year-old woman's daughter. This 85-year-old who is now freed, used to be a hostage, now freed, talking about that experience. Listen.
While she was being taken, she was hit by sticks. They walked for a few kilometers on the wet ground. There are a huge network of tunnels underneath. It looks like a spider web.
The Israeli military says more than 200 hostages are still in Gaza, kidnapped by Hamas terrorists after that attack on October 7th. So far, here are the people who Hamas has released. These are now former hostages. They're all women. They range in age from just about 17, just now turning 18, up to the mid-80s, as you just heard. All of this is happening against the backdrop of what we're seeing here in the United States, this very tense meeting of the UN Security Council over the way Israel has responded to that terror attack earlier this month. The head of the UN, the Secretary General, calling for a ceasefire for humanitarian reasons, saying that the Hamas attack did not happen in a vacuum. That prompted a very quick and very intense response from the Israeli Foreign Minister and from the Secretary of State here, Tony Blinken.
It is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation.
Mr. Secretary General, in what world do you live? Definitely, this is not our world.
It must be asked, where is the outrage? Where is the revulsion? Where is the rejection? Where is the explicit condemnation of these horrors?
Over at the White House, a spokesperson says a ceasefire, that is not what the Biden administration wants right now.
We're going to continue to try to get that humanitarian assistance in. We're going to continue to try to get hostages and people out of Gaza appropriately. And as I think you've heard us say, a ceasefire right now really only benefits Hamas.
We have team coverage tonight on the ground in the region. Keir Simmons is live for us in Doha. Hala Garani is in Tel Aviv. But I want to start with Ellison Barber, who is along the border there between Israel and Gaza. So, Ellison, talk us through what you are seeing and hearing on the ground there tonight, as it is the middle of the night, pushing into dawn where you are.
Yeah, you know, Hallie, it's been relatively quiet on this section of the border. We just heard an artillery boom way off in the distance, but it was the first time we'd heard the boom of artillery tonight. And we've been out here for quite a few hours. We have seen some flatbeds of trucks carrying military tanks and military vehicles along the road where we are. But that is also something that we have seen for weeks now. We know that there are hundreds of thousands of troops amassed along the Israel-Gaza border. We know that there is a lot of military equipment, military tanks, military vehicles in positions along the border. We have seen it for days and days, but what we have not seen is the start of that looming, much discussed ground invasion into northern Gaza. We keep hearing language from Israeli military leadership, from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and others saying that there will be this next phase of war. We heard the defense minister addressing combat troops along the border just a few days ago, telling them, you have seen Gaza from the outside, soon you will see it from the inside. But it hasn't started. And 2 days ago, Hallie, I was talking to an IDF soldier in this area, and they told us 2 days ago that their friends, the units that were along the border, they had been told by their commanders that they were going to launch a ground invasion that night. They said they had called to say sort of a final goodbye because their cell phones were being taken. But then that soldier told us that was the third time that had happened, that those troops along the border had gotten in order that possibly the ground invasion was going to happen that night, and then it did not happen. We do keep hearing this language, this repetitive language from IDF officials to imply that that ground invasion will happen soon. But we are also hearing more and more now from the families of people who have been abducted and taken into Gaza that they want a next phase of this war to wait until possibly more hostages are released. I was speaking to family who had this woman, Abby On. She has 3 relatives who are, according to the IDF, what they have told her, who are in Hamas's custody inside of Gaza, abducted from kibbutz Nir Oz. And she said she wants a ground invasion, any sort of escalation to hold until they see if more hostages might be released. And for her, what happened last night with those 2 Israeli citizens being released, it was a reminder that, in her view, they should wait on escalating this. Hallie?
So where do things stand? I think this is the question people want to know, right? We saw 2 hostages be released. A couple days later, 2 more hostages be released. Is this what the expectation is that we will see? This drip, 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 perhaps, of some of these hostages getting out? Because there are so many families, as you well know, Ellison, who are so desperate to try to get their loved ones back safely.
I think Keir will probably know a little more in terms of the discussions going on about what might come next. But having spoken to some families who, again, have relatives inside of Gaza right now, they are hoping there will be a much bigger release, not just this drip, drip. But at the same time, they say every time, or at least one family I spoke to, they say every time there's this new release, even though it's just these small amounts, just 2 different groupings, 4 people in all, it gives them hope that maybe their loved one will be released next. But at the same time, they talked about how it's a gut punch and it's painful because it's not their loved ones that are out just yet. You still have over 200 people believed to be held hostage inside of Gaza right now. And there's not a lot of trust from Israeli public that Hamas is going to uphold any of their end of the deal, of any potential promises. I mean, as far as we know, Hamas has said these last 2 releases, they did them ultimately for humanitarian reasons. Israel says that is Hamas propaganda. There was this discussion a couple of weeks ago, shortly after this war started, where there was talk of whether or not there might be some sort of swap. Israeli hostages for Palestinians being held in Israeli prisons. There are over 4,000 Palestinians in Israeli prisons. There was a lot of pushback from Israeli officials saying we're not negotiating with Hamas. We don't plan to negotiate with Hamas. But at the same time, there is a precedent here. There was a soldier in 2006, Gilad Shalit, who was abducted just past the Israel-Gaza border, taken into Gaza. He was held hostage until 2011. And ultimately, what Israel did to secure his release was release over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners just to get that one soldier out. And we'd spoken to Israeli citizens in Tel Aviv who were saying that they thought that might be an option that Israel should consider. At the same time, we spoke to people who 2 days after Netanyahu declared war were saying, we think we should go in, guns blazing, a full ground effort and get our people out. But the challenge is those tunnels, Hallie, people don't know where they are. And we're talking about 300 miles of tunnels possibly inside of Gaza. Hallie?
That tunnel network, so significant for Hamas and so difficult for the Israeli military to try to get a handle on. Ellison Barber, thank you very much. Really appreciate you being there, Ellison. Great work, as always. You heard Ellison invoke Keir Simmons' name. That is because he is in with the Qataris, talking to sources involved in some of those negotiations. Keir, let me bring you in here. We can show people on a map where you are, where you're posted up. So let's talk about that idea, this potential drip, drip, drip of the release of hostages. Is there a sense that maybe there will be a larger release? Where do negotiations stand? And what's important for us to understand here that you think is getting lost in some of this?
No, listen, Hallie, there is definitely tonight the looming potential for a release of a larger group of hostages. That is what I am told. I'm told that the talks are positive, that they have not collapsed, that they are moving forward, that there is no breakdown, but there is not so far a breakthrough. What we're talking about here is 50, 60, maybe 70 hostages, the civilian hostages. And remember that 10 of the more than 200 hostages are American citizens, American Israelis. Now, my understanding is that that civilian group, if you like, even though some of those Americans were with the IDF, were drafted, that group of civilian hostages would include all of the Americans. But we don't know because the talks are incredibly difficult. Just let me give you just a picture, Hallie, of just how difficult. We were talking just a moment ago about the 2 Israelis, the elderly Israelis who were released yesterday. Well, those talks appear to have been challenged again and again. Hamas putting forward demands as part of those talks that the Israelis were simply not prepared to agree to. So I'm told by a diplomat with knowledge of the talks that they were ongoing, but Hamas was attaching conditions that slowed them down a little and complicated them. Then on Saturday night, surprising everybody involved, Hamas announced the names of the hostages and their ID numbers and said that they would release them, not mentioning the qualifications that they had put forward. Then an hour later said they would release them. And of course, we know now that they were released. But there does appear to have been some involvement of Egypt. They came across the Rafah crossing, we think, that right there with Egypt rather than across the border into Israel. And maybe that's a clue to how difficult it was. So just think about that. That's for two. We've seen 2 hostages released, then another 2. Right. Now we're potentially talking about way more than that, more than 10 times, 20 times that number. Just imagine how logistically challenging that is. And that takes me to the point that it may not be 50, 60 or 70. It could be any number, honestly, because, again, this is a live and continuing conversation with many, with a lot of back and forth and many, many difficulties.
There are so many complicating factors here, as you have laid out, Keir. Among them is the way that the international community is viewing this. And we saw that kind of play out in what we talked about at the very top of the show here, these divisions that came into very full focus at the United Nations Security Council meeting here, right? Some parts of the world that want a ceasefire here. Israel, the U.S. very forcefully reacting against that. The Israeli foreign minister in those fiery comments saying, wait a second, we were attacked. Our people were taken. Our people were kidnapped and raped and tortured and beaten here. How could you possibly be asking us for a ceasefire? And I wonder how the Qataris play into that broader international picture here.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a complicating question. We had the Emir of Qatar here today saying the Israelis should not be given a green light to kill. So that's just even as the Qataris are involved in these negotiations to release hostages, the leader of Qatar saying, hold on a minute, we shouldn't give Israel a carte blanche, if you like. So Qatar has skin in the game. It has Hamas. Hamas has a headquarters here. But they also, remember, have 10,000 U.S. troops here in Qatar. So Qatar is a symbolic of these many countries around the world now that are kind of, they wouldn't like me saying this, playing both sides, standing in the middle. And what you're seeing, the advantage of that right now tonight is that they're able to negotiate with Hamas. Of course, others say the disadvantage is that you don't quite know whose side they're on.
Keir Simmons, live for us there in Doha. Keir, we're glad to have you there. Thank you for your reporting, as always. You talk about what's happening in Gaza, right? The humanitarian situation, experts say, getting worse literally by the day here. And you can see the number of people believed to be dead in Israel, 1,400 plus. The number of people believed to be dead in Gaza, something like 5,700 at this point. That's according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Ever since, of course, October 7th, when Israel began to respond to that brutal attack by Hamas. That's when those terrorists, of course, invaded Israel. It comes as Israel, the Israeli military, says it's hit more than 700 targets in Gaza in just the last couple days. You've got the World Health Organization saying the Gaza healthcare system could be on the brink of collapse, that nearly 2/3 of their health facilities have stopped working altogether. A doctor at one hospital in Gaza is telling our team this. Listen.
We're running out of everything from simple dressings to complex burns dressings to external fixators. Fuel is becoming an issue. We're having more and more cuts. We know that one of the major hospitals in northern Gaza, the fuel there has run out, and they're now running a much smaller generator just for the operating room.
You heard the doctor there talking about how fuel is becoming such a central issue now for the healthcare system and generally in Gaza, because while food, water, medicine, some of those trucks have made it into Gaza, apparently, according to some officials, that does not include fuel, which they need to power generators at hospitals and elsewhere. The Israelis argue that any fuel deliveries could end up being used by Hamas for military purposes. There is a bit of a clock ticking situation here, some urgency, some deadline pressure, because the UN says they're going to be forced to stop working in Gaza perhaps as early as tomorrow night because there's just not enough fuel to keep running. I want to bring in our NBC News correspondent, Hala Garani, who is joining us now live from Tel Aviv. Can you give us a reality check here on the fuel situation inside Gaza? Because the Israeli military has responded to that tweet we just showed, saying that there are fuel trucks there and Hamas is not distributing fuel. What do we have any sense of what's really happening on the ground?
Well, we have no way of verifying what's in those tankers or what's in those containers that the Israeli military tweeted. What we do know is I've been in touch with the UN relief agency in charge of refugees inside the Gaza Strip, and they have told me that the situation is so dire that if they don't get fuel in the next 24 hours, they will have to cease all operations. This is the reality on the ground as well. The UN agency there is telling us that 35 of their staff members have been killed by Israeli airstrikes since October 7th, and so therefore this is also reducing their ability to respond to the emergency situation inside of Gaza. What's in those containers, what's in those tanks, we cannot verify that from our vantage point. But from everything we're hearing on the ground, from the hospitals, there was Dr. Abu Sitta, who was in that clip that you ran, to the UN agencies. They're saying fuel has become as important as water and as important as food, because without it, you cannot operate the plants, the desalination plants, to provide drinking water to the people of Gaza. You can't operate hospitals. You can't feed generators with the fuel that they need to operate, etc. And so that is the situation on the ground. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem as though there is any desire to, on the Israeli side, to allow some of these some of these shipments to contain fuel at this stage, and find a way, find some sort of mechanism to make sure that that fuel that does not end up in the hands of Hamas inside of Gaza. Ultimately, it ends up with lots of civilians suffering, as we've seen over the last 2.5 weeks now, Hallie.
When it's discussed about the health system on the brink of collapse here, help us understand what that means here, because it is, we know that hospitals in Gaza, you see people sometimes go there, civilians go there to try to take shelter. You see people, of course, go there who have been hurt, who are dealing with injuries from the aftermath of this war, too.
Right. And I think that when we speak to people inside of Gaza and hear from them, there was a belief at the beginning of the bombing campaign that hospitals would not be targeted, but some of the areas that some people thought were safe ended up not being so safe, and people lost their lives as a result. And so there's a lot of moving around. We've seen it with some of the local producers who've sent video to Western news organizations where they pack their family up in cars and drive south, and realize that in the south perhaps they don't have the ability to seek shelter or spend any amount of time in a safe way, and then drive back up north. As far as the hospitals, they're running out also of basic sterilization equipment. They're not able to respond to casualties that are not life-threatening, and so you were hearing from some relief agencies on the ground that diseases and health issues such as just diarrhea in children and the type of diseases and infections that you catch from dirty water, that this is all starting to spread as well. So it's not just the very severe injuries, it's also people who are not able to address things like that end up becoming very problematic in the longer term. If you don't treat a basic infection, it could lead to a much worse health issue, especially for so many of the children who are affected. Hallie.
Yeah, so many. Hala Garani live for us there in Tel Aviv. Hala, thank you for being with us tonight. As the fighting along the border of Lebanon and Israel appears to escalate here, there are experts who are concerned about what a greater regional conflict, right, so what a bigger regional war could mean for this area. Here's our Matt Bradley with more.
Well, we're seeing still more fighting on the border behind me between Lebanon and Israel now. Hezbollah has reported that 36 fighters have died in more than 2 weeks of fighting ever since that Hamas attack on October 7th started this latest crisis. Now, we're still seeing a lot of fighting, and we're still seeing regional tension and a lot of suspicion coming from Washington and in Israel that Hezbollah, the dominant military group here that I just mentioned, could be joining the fight at any time. Now, this could be at the direction of Iran, which, like Hezbollah, also backs Hamas. Now, that would have an incredible effect on the people of this country, and that is what so many people are worried about. This is a divided country. It's very sectarian. Not everybody is in favor of Hezbollah. Now, already, there's no hot war here. This is just kind of on a low simmer, but there's already some 20,000 people, nearly 20,000 people, according to the United Nations, who have been displaced here in southern Lebanon. I went to a school that is kind of an impromptu internally displaced people shelter and spoke with some folks there. Now, it wasn't too overcrowded, but the people there were very worried that if full-on war does break out, that it could create a mass exodus of folks into places like this school or into the northern part of the country. That is a major concern. Now, we already know that Israel will probably attack further into this country if there were to be a major outbreak of war. We heard from President Isaac Herzog. He said that all of Lebanon needs to worry about this. And this is because back in 2006, which is where everybody's mind goes here, when you mention this possibility of war, he said that they should be worried about this. They should be encouraging Hezbollah not to go to war, that Israel will punish all of Lebanon if Hezbollah decides to take matters into their own hands.
Our thanks to Matt Bradley for that reporting. We got a lot more to get to here on the show, including what in the world is happening over at the Capitol, not far from where I'm sitting right now. Yes, it has really been 3 weeks without a speaker, and it doesn't appear tonight like we're any closer to getting one, at least not in the coming hours this evening. We'll give you a look at where things are going here because House Republicans are back meeting behind closed doors as we speak. We're live from the Capitol in just a sec. I wish I had news for you on the drama related to the Speaker of the House. I am merely the messenger because right now they are trying to figure it out. Republicans in the building, literally right across the street from where I'm sitting right now, meeting behind closed doors to try to figure out who could be their next nominee. And if you're thinking, wait a second, I thought they already had a nominee today. I thought Tom Emmer, this member of Congress, the number 3 House Republican, was going to be our nominee. You'd be right. He was the nominee for about 4 hours. Then he dropped out because it became clear that he, too, would not have enough votes to actually become Speaker of the House. That's a lesson that Kevin McCarthy learned. That's a lesson that Steve Scalise learned. That's a lesson Jim Jordan learned. Tom Emmer learned that. What about try number 5, basically? Where are we now after 3 weeks without a speaker? Part of the issue for Emmer, of course, was the Trump factor here. You had former President Trump coming out and slamming Emmer. He is no fan. He's been no fan ever since Emmer, back when the former president was pushing his election fraud lies, voted to certify the legitimate results of the 2020 election. Mr. Trump calling Emmer's nomination a tragic mistake. And some of the former president's loyalists in the party backed him up. Listen to this.
I can't go along with putting one of the most moderate members of the entire Republican conference in the Speaker's chair. That betrays the conservative values that I came here to fight for.
How concerned are you about his vote on same-sex marriage?
Very concerned.
Could you vote against him?
Yes.
Would you? Is there any way you would vote for him?
No.
People are talking. He's had some issues with the former president. I think some of the comments that he's made in the past, I'm not going to get specific, but I think it's causing him some problems.
I want to bring in NBC senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor, who is on hour 1000 on Capitol Hill covering all of this. Okay, Sahil, it's very clear. We get it. Emmer's out. Gotcha. Who is in? Because right now, 8:25 Eastern time, right, 5:25 Pacific time out west, this is not a time when Congress is normally in session. This is not a time when members are hanging out on the Hill unless they have to be. Well, tonight they have to be. So what's happening?
Yeah, so House Republicans, Hallie, have been meeting over the last several hours on yet another candidate forum to pick their 4th nominee for Speaker since removing Kevin McCarthy from the job. There are now 5 candidates in the running after an original 6th candidate dropped out just in the last few hours in the midst of this forum. The one everyone's got their eyes on here is Mike Johnson, the Louisiana Republican who was the runner-up to Tom Emmer in the earlier ballot. today. The way this has tended to work is usually the runner-up tends to win the next time around, and Mike Johnson came pretty close to Tom Emmer's total in the nomination. So he's vice chair of the Republican conference. He's also facing others like Byron Donalds, who ran last time and lost, as well as three new candidates, Chuck Fleischman, Mark Green, and Roger Williams. All of those three candidates are seen as heavy underdogs. And whoever wins, if it's Mike Johnson, if it's anybody else, they will have to do what Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan and Tom Emmer all failed to do, which is win 217 of the 221 Republicans in the House of Representatives. They're not expecting any Democratic votes on this one, and this is increasingly becoming a multi-dimensional Rubik's Cube for them to solve, Hallie. There's no clear path to unifying this very fractious conference, and the bad blood and animosity and the backbiting within the conference has only grown with each iteration of failed speaker.
And now you have Kevin McCarthy, the former House Speaker, right? The guy who was ousted by a minority of his party, just 8 Republicans who voted to try to kick him out, along with Democrats here. He's trying to get back in the mix, or he is back in the mix, or our reporting is that he wants to be back in the mix. Help me understand that.
Yeah, so this reporting comes from our colleagues Ali Vitale and Scott Wong, and they're reporting that McCarthy floated some idea of some sort of co-speakership that he would share with Jim Jordan. He would share the duties with Jim Jordan. It would put him back in the speaker's chair, but in a power-sharing arrangement. I would be very skeptical that the House Republican... It's not a thing as far as we've known any of this to actually happen in the House of Representatives. There's no precedent for this. The Speaker of the House is a one-person job. It's always been a one-person job. And, there's very good reason to be extremely skeptical that House Republicans will buy into this. If Kevin McCarthy thought this was a viable option, he certainly would have leapt at it, in his final days and weeks before he was ultimately overthrown. This is one of the desperate options for a party that is growing increasingly desperate to keep the lights on as they are careening toward crises. With 3 weeks with no speaker, there's a government funding deadline coming up on November 17th. There's aid to Israel, aid to Ukraine that they want to do. There's a supplemental that includes, policies to contain China and lots more from the Biden administration. They got to pass a farm bill. They got to reauthorize the FAA. They got to reauthorize the Pentagon all in the next few months. You can't do anything without a speaker. So these desperate options are coming up again and again. One desperate option that's still not being seriously considered, Hallie, is working with Democrats. To paraphrase Meatloaf, Republicans would do anything for a speaker, but they won't do that.
Salah Kapoor. I had more from how do you even top a Meatloaf quote? We're going to leave it there. We're going to end on the meatloaf as the sausage is made where you are. Sahel, thank you so much. Talking about former President Trump, he had 2 people now today, in the same day, who used to be aligned with him, now anything but, right? First, his former fixer turned nemesis, really, Michael Cohen, showing up at this New York civil fraud trial to testify against the former president. Then you have this woman, you see her here, a former attorney of Mr. Trump's, Jenna Ellis. She's involved in that Georgia election interference case, but she now becomes the 4th person in that case, the 4th co-defendant of Mr. Trump's, to plead guilty. Remember, there had been 19 co-defendants in all, not just Mr. Trump, but Rudy Giuliani, et cetera. They were all charged with essentially trying to racketeer, alleging they were part of a criminal enterprise that tried to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. Ellis pleaded. She pleaded guilty. She's now the 3rd one of Mr. Trump's former attorneys to plead guilty just in this case alone. 5 years probation. She's got to pay $5,000. And importantly, she may end up having to testify against Donald Trump at a future trial or hearing. It is a startling turn of events for Jenna Ellis, who was smiling in her mugshot when she was booked, now in tears in court. Watch.
In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse.
I want to bring in now NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Danny, we said it, right? It is kind of whiplash here for Jenna Ellis in particular, who may be familiar to viewers and listeners as somebody who was pushing the former president's election fraud lies back after the 2020 election here. Now, she is in the position where, as part of her plea agreement here, as part of her plea guilty, she may have to testify against him. How significant could this be?
Very significant. And this is a gambit for the Fulton County DA that has worked out. In other words, they charged several co-defendants, probably planning that some of them simply couldn't take the heat. And it's no coincidence that the 4 who have pleaded guilty so far and agreed to cooperate, 3 of those 4 are lawyers. And the reason I think that is that lawyers have a lot to lose. That includes their license. They face almost certain discipline, possibly disbarment with any conviction. So if they plead guilty to the lowest possible charge earliest on, maybe there's a glimmer of hope for them possibly keeping their bar license. So I predict that this is just the first of many. You're probably going to see at least another half dozen in the next 6 months probably come to plead guilty. Those would be people who have jobs, careers. They want to put this all behind them. These are the ideal people for the Fulton County DA to target as cooperating witnesses. And cooperating witnesses, this is a biased criminal defense attorney here, but they will, in my view, say and do anything that they can to please the people who are offering them that plea deal. So anyone who has not yet pleaded guilty should be very concerned, and that includes Donald Trump.
You know, you answered one of the questions that I had about this, which is, could they face discipline? Some of these attorneys who used to work for former President Trump that are now pleading guilty, these 3 of them, could they get disbarred just based on the plea agreement? It sounds like what you're saying is that's not for sure, right?
Every state regulates its own attorneys, so every state has its own rules, and there really is no set rule other than, as a general proposition, any conviction could potentially threaten your license. I mean, that's just a general rule of thumb. So these folks all have real concerns about their future career as attorneys because of these convictions. But here's an interesting thing. If these fall within Georgia's First Offender Act, the First Offender Act allows people who are first-time offenders who are convicted, they have the possibility of going through probation, and they may be able to get the conviction erased. It's one of those one free bite of the apple, almost like a diversion program. So it's possible, if that's what they pleaded to and if the statute applies, if they got their records clean, that's why they likely were they wanted to plead guilty under these terms, because losing your license is your ability to practice, and that's a bad one.
So we have assessed the Jenna Ellis bucket of it all. Let me go back to now Michael Cohen, right? Separate case. Mentally, everybody draw a thick black line, right? Very different case. Still one involving former President Trump, but this one a civil trial, $250 million civil trial, where today in court, Michael Cohen, who again used to be kind of a fixer for Donald Trump, basically pointed the finger at him and accused him, Mr. Trump, of personally being responsible for lying about how much he was actually worth, and by breaking the law in doing so. The prosecution seems to be hoping that Michael Cohen is their star witness here. And this is the backdrop of essentially this major falling out between the two. They haven't been in the same room in something like 5 years, right? I mean, that's what's been sort of widely reported here. Michael Cohen today after court was like, yeah, heck of a reunion, basically. Walk us through the significance of Cohen now testifying against Donald Trump and what it could mean.
Perhaps never in the history of witnesses has a witness come to court and testified, and we knew exactly what he's going to say because he's been saying it to Congress in his book, on TV, on his podcast. There were no secrets left with Michael Cohen. We all knew he was going to come in today. So I don't know that you could call his testimony bombshell, but it certainly was significant because this was Donald Trump's inside guy who knew where the documents were, what the documents were. And what was really significant to me is that you could argue as the defense that, hey, it's New York real estate and the Trump brand. That's an amorphous thing. It could be worth this many million. It could be worth that many million. But when Michael Cohen testifies that, hey, there was no formula, it was arbitrary, that goes a long way towards the state proving its case against the Trump defendants.
Danny Savalos, lots to unpack there. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. Coming up here, you know that off-duty pilot who allegedly tried to take down a plane headed to California over the weekend? Well, turns out, according to some new documents, he may have taken shrooms before it happened. Plus, a former MLB pitcher arrested last week in connection to a murder in 2021. We're looking at that not-so-cold case next. Welcome back. Here's some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. SAG-AFTRA and the big Hollywood studios are back at the bargaining table today after nearly 2 weeks of not much talking at all. When the studios suspended talk, saying the gap between the two sides was still too big. Actors and performers want more money. They want better residuals on stuff that streams, and they want some restrictions on things related to AI. The strike has now lasted more than 100 days. The 8 officers who shot and killed 25-year-old Jalen Walker are back on active duty tonight, according to officials. Walker was killed last year, remember, shot 46 times. Police say they pulled him over for what they called a minor equipment violation. The Ohio Attorney General says Walker had a gun at the time, but left it in the car before leading police on a chase. In April, a grand jury declined to indict the officers, who fired a total of 94 shots in just under 7 seconds. A former National Security Agency worker is pleading guilty to trying to sell top-secret info to Russia. According to this plea deal, 31-year-old Jared Dalkey believed he was giving information to a Russian agent. Turns out that agent was actually an undercover FBI worker. He now faces the possibility of life in prison. Olympic gold medalist Mary Lou Retton is out of the hospital and back home, according to her family, recovering after a scary setback in her fight against pneumonia. Her daughter online thanked all their fans for the support, saying that her mom has a long road to recovery ahead, but is taking baby steps. And while fall is in full swing, it is starting to look a lot like winter in Oregon. Look at this snow coming down already. First snowstorm in this country of the season. The National Weather Service says the heaviest snow is expected later tonight. Some spots could see almost a foot. So that off-duty pilot who allegedly tried to crash an Alaskan Airlines flight over the weekend, a plane over the weekend, apparently told investigators that he had not slept in something like 40 hours, was concerned he was having a nervous breakdown, and had taken shrooms about 48 hours beforehand, according to new documents that we're seeing tonight. That pilot is now facing more than 80 counts of attempted murder. Our Tom Costello has more.
All right.
In an Oregon courtroom this afternoon, Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph Emerson facing 167 counts of attempted murder, reckless endangerment, and endangering an aircraft, plus interfering with a flight crew.
There is probable cause to believe that defendant has committed one of the offenses.
Today, an FBI affidavit claims while off-duty, riding in the cockpit jump seat, Emerson told the pilot and co-pilot, "I'm not okay," then reached up and grabbed the red fire suppression handles to shut down the plane's engines. For nearly 30 seconds, he struggled with the crew before they kicked him out of the cockpit, declaring an emergency.
I'll just give you a heads up. We've got the guy that tried to shut the engines down out of the cockpit.
Emerson walked to the rear of the plane where he allegedly told a flight attendant, "You need to cuff me right now or it's going to be bad." Then, with handcuffs on his wrists, he allegedly tried to open the emergency exit, though that's impossible, saying, "I messed everything up and tried to kill everybody," and said he thought he was having a nervous breakdown and hadn't slept in 40 hours. The affidavits say Emerson denied taking any medication, but told police he'd been depressed for 6 years and had taken psychedelic mushrooms 48 hours prior to the flight. Married with the family, neighbors say it was all out of character for the veteran pilot.
For how he treats the kids, the family, no indications of anything wrong.
But the required pilot medical exams do not include in-depth mental health evaluations.
The FAA requires pilots to self-report any kind of issues regarding depression or mental illness, but there really is no other intensive psychological screening. Obviously, a background check is performed by the airline and medical records are reviewed, but there's not too much deep diving into the mental health of a pilot.
Emerson pleaded not guilty in court, though he did tell investigators he pulled the engine shutoff handles because he thought he was having a dream and wanted to wake up. He told them, "I'm admitting to what I did. I am not fighting any charges you want to bring against me." Hallie?
Our thanks to Tom Costello for that. We're following some breaking news here tonight. Hurricane Otis is now a Category 4 storm, according to the latest update just into us tonight. It is getting stronger, wind at like 145 miles an hour. And our weather unit reports it could end up as a very rare Category 5 landfall set to hit tomorrow morning in Acapulco in Mexico. Our meteorologist says rarely in recorded history, according to our Bill Karen, says a storm this strong threatens such an area like this in Mexico that has so many people in it. People are now being asked to move to some kind of shelter, concrete shelter, in the next 4 to 6 hours. We're looking ahead to that next update from the National Hurricane Center coming down at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. West Coast time. Now, for tonight's cold case file, the story of a 2021 murder in Lake Tahoe that hit a dead end. But now, that trail seems to have led police to a former major leaguer. Ben Marjot from our NBC affiliate KNRV has more.
For over 2 years, this surveillance video of a man in a hoodie and mask was all we knew about who killed Gary Spoor and left his wife Wendy Wood for dead. Until Friday, when police arrested 49-year-old Reno man Daniel Serafini in Winnemucca and 33-year-old Samantha Scott in Las Vegas, both now behind bars in connection to the 2021 Homewood Lake Tahoe murder that gained national attention and left family members desperate for answers. We talked to Spoor's brother in 2021.
Our whole family is just in disbelief that this could even happen. It's a huge loss.
Serafini is a former Major League Baseball pitcher who had a 7-year career and retired in 2007. Gary Spoor was his father-in-law.
He was a good man. There wasn't anything that would trigger us to believe that this heinous crime happened.
Wendy Wood, his mother-in-law, survived the initial shooting despite gunshot wounds to the head and wrist, but died about a year later. Serafini's wife, as recently as July, told the San Francisco Chronicle, quote, "I have no idea who did that to my parents. I wish I knew." Apparently unaware her own husband was involved. The Placer County Sheriff's Office had identified a person of interest 2 years ago, but never released a name. Family offered a $150,000 reward, but it's unclear what exactly led to the breakthrough in this case. Also unclear if Scott, the second suspect, is related to the family. The Placer County Sheriff's Office is waiting for both suspects to be extradited back to California to be formally charged. Ben Marjot reporting.
Coming up here on the show, the Gaza Strip running out of clean water, and the water that is left is probably riddled with bacteria. We're going to have more on the implications there in just a sec. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. In China, the government removed the country's defense minister today, a couple of months after he disappeared from the public eye with basically no explanation. This is the latest in the series of government shakeups in China. The head of the country's nuclear forces was sacked over the summer. In Nigeria today, more than 70 people were arrested for attending a birthday party for LGBTQ+ people. These are the latest arrests targeting members of that community in Nigeria, where an anti-gay law has been in place since 2014. Nigerian officials say the organizer of the party had also planned to marry another man. In Hong Kong, a Republican state senator from Washington was arrested for having a gun in his carry-on bag. His name's Jeff Wilson. He actually found the gun himself and reported it to customs officials in Hong Kong because it was not detected by screeners when he flew out of Portland. He's been released on bail. His hearing is set for next week. And out of Iceland now, tens of thousands of women across the country, including the prime minister, on strike today, protesting the gender pay gap and gender-based violence. This is the 7th time women have walked off the job in Iceland, shutting down banks and schools and stores. Today's walkout was the biggest in 50 years. Take it back to our top story tonight, the war between Israel and Hamas and the situation in Gaza. That humanitarian crisis is intensifying almost every day. And it's almost like a domino effect, too. Not enough supplies and resources now means there's a water crisis, which is raising a lot of concern for the health of millions of people who are essentially trapped there, about 2 million people. NBC News medical reporter Erica Edwards takes a look.
Gaza now parched for power, clean drinking water and food. The unfolding medical crisis threatening to make an already tragic situation worse.
Gaza is being strangled. We all know water is life, and Gaza is running out of water, and Gaza is running out of life.
After Hamas's October 7th attack, Israel cut off the water it supplies to Gaza, as well as electricity and fuel that power many of its water treatment plants, forcing more than 2 million Gazans to drink or cook with potentially tainted water. Cholera, a top concern.
A lot of people are going to get sick.
Dr. Adam Levine specializes in global emergency medicine at Brown University.
Cholera especially can cause severe dehydration in a matter of hours when somebody starts developing symptoms from it. So it's one of the ones we worry the most about.
Those most at risk are children. About half the population of Gaza is under 18, and smaller bodies have much less blood volume.
When they have diarrhea, they're going to lose a much larger proportion of their body fluid than adults would.
Some of Gaza's youngest patients kept alive in incubators and hospital neonatal intensive care units. But doctors say if they lose power, babies could die within minutes. In the operating room, doctors handing some patients just one painkiller or none.
They don't have enough morphine, painkillers to use for the patients. So what they are doing, they are forced to do operation with not the adequate dose of painkiller.
At one hospital, the AP and ITV reporting doctors working under the glow of phone flashlights. At another, a doctor says staff are stitching patients with sewing needles and wrapping burns with clothes in place of bandages. Those swaps adding to the risk of contracting infectious diseases.
What illnesses are you most worried about in this population?
I would be especially worried about waterborne diseases that can cause diarrhea, and also respiratory diseases. We know that in other conflicts around the world, whether it be in Africa or the Middle East or South Asia, that infectious diseases actually kill more civilians than bombs or bullets.
Our thanks to Erica Edwards for that reporting there. Tonight, we're also getting a look at the Israel-Hamas war through the eyes of one American who felt compelled to serve. Major Nelson, a father of two from Miami, was getting ready to celebrate his son's 4th birthday on Saturday, October 7th, of course, the day of that Hamas terror attack against Israel. The next day, he was on a plane to Tel Aviv. NBC's Kelly Kobiea has his story.
Major Nelson is a long way from home. The Miami father of two in command of a military patrol boat off the coast of Israel. I mean, you left your job, you left your 2 young kids, you left your wife.
I don't know someone who don't understand the importance of this moment.
The morning of October 7th was his son's 4th birthday. Watching the horror unfold in his native Israel, he knew instantly he had to leave.
What did your wife say when you said you were going?
Well, thank God I have a very strong, beautiful wife back at home. She's taking care of our 2 kids.
What did she say to you?
She said many things.
You share something.
She gave me a kiss, blessed me for peace. I'm back home safe.
He was on the next flight to his other home, the sea, joining his former squadron.
The crew on this ship spends days at sea protecting the coast near Gaza. They say the threat from Hamas militants is still real, and it's their job to stop it.
The same group that fought off Hamas fast boats and divers charging toward Israel October 7th. Thwarting Hamas divers again tonight, the IDF says.
You spent 10 years in the Navy. Does this time feel different?
Yes, this is a very different time.
It's personal. His loved ones are among the hostages. His children waiting for him back home.
You miss your kids?
I do, very much.
Fighting a war he's never encountered before, for as long as it takes. Kelly Kobiea, NBC News, off the coast of Israel.
Before we let you go, it is time for the future of everything, or maybe more like what could have been the future. After a bunch of accidents and some pushback, it looks like self-driving cars are getting taken off the road in California, at least some of them. We're going to have more on that. Stay tuned. Driving cars in California are getting some pushback tonight. We're talking about the 2 companies who have been front and center in rolling out these autonomous cars, Cruise and Waymo. Well, today, California's DMV suspended GM's Cruise from operating its self-driving taxis in San Francisco because of safety concerns. This means Cruise can't use its robo-taxis or test its tech without a driver in the car. Thus, it's no longer driverless. This isn't coming out of nowhere. There have been a string of incidents involving Cruise taxis. Earlier this month, a hit-and-run victim was thrown in front of a Cruise car that then ran her over and pinned her. Cruise has responded to the suspension, saying that they are cooperating with the DMV. Then, a little further south in L.A., this rally outside Google headquarters, look at this, today protested Waymo's self-driving cars. The organizers say they're against expanding those robo-taxis in L.A., again, bringing up safety concerns. Michelle Valles with our L.A. affiliate KNBC is talking with people there.
Outside the headquarters of Google here in Venice are Teamsters and local leaders fighting for what they say is a looming threat of jobs and safety. They're against the self-driving cars that have made their way out to the streets here in Los Angeles.
This issue is an absolute safety issue. I represent the firefighters in San Francisco. Some of the things that they've come across recently is a driverless car dragging a woman for several blocks, parked in front of a fire station, so we cannot get out.
Soon, Angelenos will be experiencing what the drivers of San Francisco and Phoenix already have, and that is self-driving cars. Plenty of mixed reviews, but there is a wait list out there for Angelenos to try out these cars. Waymo is an Alphabet-owned autonomous driving technology company with the mission, they say, to make it safe and easy for people to get to and from. Their research claims there are 50 million injuries and over 1 million deaths worldwide due to human errors like speeding, phone distractions, fatigue, and drunk driving. Adding, we appreciate that people have different viewpoints and encourage them to learn more about the positive impacts that Waymo's autonomous ride-hailing is having on safety, accessibility, and sustainability.
It is an uphill battle, but we're going to continue to fight this fight because what's right is right, and that's the safety of our communities. And it's a no-brainer for these politicians. If they want to continue to support big tech and not the people, we're going to vote them out.
Teamsters basically calling the rollout of self-driving cars reckless. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reported that in 2021, Waymo had the most automated driving system crashes of any self-driving company. They say they will continue to fight for their jobs and for the safety of drivers out on the road. In Venice, Michelle Valles, NBC News.
That does it for us tonight. It's a pleasure to be with you in for Gadi. I'm Hallie Jackson. You can catch me every weekday right here on NBC News Now. However you're watching, however you're streaming, starting at 5 o'clock Eastern, a little earlier for Hallie Jackson Now. I'll be right back there tomorrow. But until then, it's been a pleasure. Stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.